What's up, everybody? I'm gonna let this music load. It gives YouTube a chance to catch up. Everything's a little bit delayed between Haps and YouTube, so I like to use this music, which is, I don't know, it's kind of got some weirdness to it, but hey, we're here.
It's almost Halloween.
Yeah, it's a little like, I'm not sure where they chose that background music for the countdown. I would have chose something different, but here we are. What's up, buddy?
Busy day, man. Sorry for the delay, but I appreciate you accommodating me.
Anytime, it's when you don't have a business anymore like me, and I was working 110 hours a week and I'm down to 50, I feel like it's a part-time job. So I have way more free time, which isn't normally free time from other people. For me, it's a lot of free time. So doing these things helps fill my week, and I enjoy doing them. So everybody, first of all, thank you for tuning in and joining. I think this is our third time together. The Right Choice with Tom Yeager and Matt Cubbler. Just to give everybody a little bit, if this is your first time tuning in or you haven't had a chance to go on Tom's Facebook page, which is Tom Yeager for UPT.
That's correct.
And I think he's posting the prior YouTube videos. Hey, Ellen, on there. If you want to go back and watch those, the first and second one's a lot of good information. But Tom and I try to do a weekly, bi-weekly podcast, for lack of a better term, that gives Tom a chance to put out there things that he's interested in as far as how he's going to help Upper Providence Township, the type of man he is, his background, all that good stuff. And the first two were one was a very, like, we fed you through a fire hydrant. Second one, we got a little bit more pared down. And I think this one, what I want to try to do, I don't think people understand, and you mentioned it right before we went on the air, that you don't know how people juggle a job, a family, and a campaign all at the same time. Having done that myself, I can tell you it's not enjoyable, but it's part of the process to get to the point where you're able to do some good for your community, and those that do it well typically are the ones that win. But that's kind of what I wanted to highlight is there's a lot of unknown work that goes into not only running for office, but then once you get into office, I don't think people quite understand the extent of time commitment that's required to run for a local government position like township supervisor. So what I want to try to do in this episode is to talk about the stuff you've been doing since the last time we spoke, as far as the things you're doing behind the scenes, meeting with people, attending events, working already even though you're not elected, to make those relationships with members of the township, whether it's the citizens or police, fire, and EMS, or the public works, or whoever it is that you're meeting with, to try to give them an idea of who you are, and then what type of supervisor you're going to be. So first and foremost, how are you? Are you holding up?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I, some days it just, it reminds you that you're human. I'm a little bit more casual today, and I was busy, so I worked all day long, which is normal. But my wife and I are usually pretty well coordinated. But I realized I hadn't mowed my grass in probably 2 weeks, and it was going to overtake my front step. So I tried to run out right after work and mow the grass. Then I forgot that there was someone coming to the house to kind of work with my son a little bit. So I ran to do that. Still had grass in my hair. So I ran, got that done, ran upstairs, and I'd forgotten my wife's got way more energy than I do, and I have a lot of energy. But she's involved in a golf association. So they were having their golf association night, and I had completely forgotten about it. So of course I had the kids, and I'm trying to get them to do their homework, and it's all in a day's fun, but I'm doing good. I'm happy. Still got a lot of energy. Just today's been a long one.
Well, one thing I can, first of all, I can't empathize with the grass and the hair. It's been a while. But I
So
will
mine's
say,
still sticking up from
we'll never
mowing.
have to worry about it, right? I'd said it looked like you had a little bit of a hair. You had one sticking out the side there before we went on. So
Yeah,
that explains why.
it's
But
getting
I
cut
think,
Friday.
yeah, wow. Listen, dude, if I had your head of hair, I wouldn't cut it as often as you might think you need to. But I always say God only made so many perfect heads, and the rest He put hair on. So I like at
Nice
least
one.
that's what bald guys say. And I'm not bald by choice. I'm bald because God said so. And
Yeah.
I just decided to embrace it.
You have a nicer beard. If I grow a beard, I look like a Colombian drug lord. It's not a pretty look for me.
Not when you're
So
running for office. When you're trying to get yes votes,
yeah,
Colombian drug lord is not necessarily the most ideal political look to have.
yeah. No, I lose some stock for sure if I
Right.
grow the beard.
People are going to start, checking into your IRS background and seeing where they got to be shell companies and offshore bank accounts or anything like that. But
Yeah.
so tell me, we talked 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, and I know you had some events you were going to, some meetings you were attending. Give me kind of like a summary, and then maybe we'll dive deeper into a couple of those on some of the things you've been doing over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, walking houses is way more difficult now than it was in the spring. When I was running in the spring, it was light until 9. I could get off work. You could get in a lot of houses. It's hard to get houses in at night right now. Um, the Eagles play at 1 o'clock, so you don't dare knock on a door at 1 o'clock around here on a Sunday. So it really leaves a Saturday and a little bit of a Sunday to walk. So I wish I could hit more doors, but I'm conscious not to do it at night because I don't think that's appropriate. And just frankly, the it's not as light out as late, so you just don't have as much time. So I've been focusing more on my Facebook campaign. Additional to that, I did have somebody reach out to me from Montclair. As you know, Montclair, Phoenixville, folks over near Perkiomen Woods, we're all highly affected by Hurricane Ida, and Hurricane Ida was quite an event around here, not just for us. And the emergency services for Upper Providence Township collaborated all around with surrounding townships and did an absolute phenomenal job helping people. They worked through the night and really did a terrific job. The support after that came for a few weeks, but a woman did reach out to me and just kind of said, "Hey, we're still a month into this thing, and people are without electricity, people are without plumbing." And I think there was a little mess up in coordination. Don't know who. Not going to point fingers, but some porta johnies were taken away that were helpful. An ice truck that they had, and they weren't sure why. And for whatever reason, they reached out to me to kind of see. So my wife and I went down there, and I said, "Look, folks, I'm not trying to campaign on your disaster. So the last thing I'm doing is coming down here and trying to campaign." And I think a lot of folks had shown up to kind of see what had happened, but now we're talking a month after, right? So I kind of stepped back from it, and I said to my wife, I said, "Geez, I want to help out where I can." So my wife really got involved because I didn't feel like it was super appropriate for me to do it. So she got super involved with them, helped them out, helped handing out food. We donated money. A lot of people did, not just us. Phoenixville was there to help us. So that was pretty cool to get down there and meet those people. And it was a humbling experience because I could have hung out down there and took all the photo ops in the world, but I chose not to do that, Matt, because I just didn't feel like it was right that these people were dealing with a tragedy. And so I kind of stayed back and kind of supported my wife and let her she's an extremely giving person and high energy, as I mentioned. And she was really down there helping them out a lot. And they still need continued help. We try to keep in touch with them, but we got into that, and it kind of made me think a lot about politics, supervisor, what's your role? At the end of it, I kind of said, I think it's a really good idea anytime that an event like this happens. And I mentioned this to a few people in office that, you need to step back and look at what went well and what didn't. I know that we have emergency plans. I know that we have evacuation plans. I know that we have support plans, and I know that money was set aside to support everybody. I don't know that it went as efficiently as it should have because some confusion and some things, some support went away. Some people had other support. And again, I'm being a little bit vague because I don't want to be pointing fingers, and that's not what I'm trying to do. But what I'm saying is, I think it's really important that we look back at Ida because that's going to happen again. Storms are going to happen again. That's not the last hurricane coming through, or is a tropical depression, I guess, when it hit us. But we have to think about what we're going to do. And it's not just us, it's Phoenixville, it's all the surrounding communities that are along that waterway. I know that they're talking about how do they kind of rezone the floodplain and make sure that it's determined appropriately and people know it. How do you develop the area over time? Building some kind of water mitigation system would be millions and millions of dollars, so I don't know that that's a turnkey solution. I don't even know if it's a practical solution long term, but I think it's important that we do that. So I've been trying to talk to some people about, hey, if I get elected, I want to do this. If I don't get elected, I think whoever's in there should do this, right? And have that documented so that the next time an event like that happens, we continue to do the awesome job on emergency services, but the support continues, for a long period of time. And here we are probably 5-6 weeks after that situation. And those people are still dealing with a lot of tragedy down there. So it's unfortunate. They're members of our community and they need help. And so tomorrow night, actually, there's a fundraiser down there for them. So my wife and I have agreed to go down there. We're friends with the gentleman who owns Lock 29. It's going
to mention Buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. So he lives across the street. My son was down helping him clean out his place. So they're having a fundraiser. So we're going to go down there and try to support them tomorrow night, which will be pretty cool.
I worked that night of the flood where I'm a police officer. So I saw firsthand the destruction that it did to Collegeville Borough. And I know how hard Montclair got hit. And I was, obviously on the radio hearing all the calls coming in and I don't think people quite grasp what happens when your whole house goes underwater or your whole business goes underwater. And this isn't like water, like a bathtub filling up and it just sits. This is moving water.
Yeah.
So moving water takes things and moves them. And the power of water in that, I saw houses ripped off their foundation and moved 100 yards. When the water receded, there was, a toilet in a tree. like stuff you're like, okay.
Yeah. It's
wow.
Amazing. The power of that.
Yeah. And I don't know what it's like to live in a floodplain, and I don't know I know the insurance is astronomical to insure a home in a floodplain. And I'm not sure how much money someone can get in return from an insurance claim for the damage caused to a home damaged by a flood. But I can tell you none of that works fast. Right? Those processes are slow as shit. And then these people are, waiting on, and most of them, this isn't their first rodeo, right? We've had plenty of floods, and most of the people that live in those areas have more than likely lived there for a while. And so they're veterans of the flood game. But waiting on PEMA and FEMA to come out, survey, make determinations, determine how much money you deserve or should get for the damage to your home, on top of the claim that you have to place with your insurance company. And then I don't know how that works. Does it, to get federal money or emergency disaster money, does that mitigate or lessen the amount of money you get from your insurance? I have no idea. But I know all of these things are happening at once. And for a municipality, one of the simplest things you can do is provide somebody the chance to put their damaged stuff somewhere, right? So, we had issues with looting. I know Upper Providence did as well, where people were coming in and, they found a washing machine or a refrigerator or a toilet or a bathtub or whatever, 100 yards downstream, and they're going in and taking those items as if it's theirs, and they're taking it and selling it on eBay, or taking the copper or the electronics and stripping them out and putting them up and taking them to to get money back for if there's metal in it or whatever the case might be. We understand what the process is, and they don't own that stuff. That still is property owned by somebody. And in our jurisdictions, we don't have the luxury of hundreds of police officers to, put 30 guys down there on a 24-hour rotation to guard the area and make sure the looters are staying out and all those things. So the township or the borough in Collegeville's case could do something as simple as making sure there's a dumpster with space in it that people can put their trash in. Because, nobody wants to live in an area where there's nothing but trash, right?
Yeah.
After the first thing people want to do, and what everybody was doing was starting to clean up, right? How do we clean up after the mess? And if you don't have running water, making sure there is a water station there with drinkable water, making sure that there are porta-johns there. So, and those things should be mandatory processes within the township or the borough for as long as that takes for these people to start to rebuild their lives.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I don't know exactly what's going on in Upper Providence, but I know that's a concern everywhere. How that process is handled and how attentive the people in the government of Upper Providence or anywhere else are to that daily need, because that's a daily refillable need. It's not a once and done, throw a dumpster there and we'll come get it when it's full. It's full that day and every day thereafter. And those porta potties are going to be used every day until they actually have a bathroom. Like those are things that need to be done. And I think it's commendable that first of all, you recognize that that was some place that you were probably needed just as a citizen, because you didn't manipulate the opportunity, which sadly most politicians would simply just use that as a chance to get a photo op or do some grandstanding. And the fact you put your wife in the lead without having to make that association for you running for office is, you may have missed an opportunity. I'm a cynic. You may have missed an opportunity to get some votes, but in the long run, you did the right thing. And I would have probably done the same thing because I'm not that guy either.
Yeah, no, my integrity is more important than that.
Yeah.
I want to be able to lay my head down at night. And, there was a couple local heroes down there that I met that are just every day helping people and giving food, and what my wife did and the little support that her and I did. I hope it helped a lot. I think it did, but these people are at it every single day, and they should be commended for it, because it's really quite a community, to see that. I think they're pretty tight knit down there. They're folks that have lived for a long time and know each other and got each other's backs, and it's pretty impressive to see. And it's nice to see that. I live in a new community where we've only been we've been in it for about 8 years, and everyone else 8 to 10 years. So some of the folks down there have been generations of families that know each other. So it's pretty.
And that's what I was saying with the like we have East First Avenue and West First Avenue in Collegeville, which are right along the Perkiomen.
Yeah.
Which, those people have lived there forever. And, they helped each other. I was down there every day just sort of surveying the situation, making sure there was nobody doing stupid stuff. And, seeing the people out there, small business that really was affected, Transfleet, which is a concrete company on First Avenue in Collegeville. They lost 7 trucks. Concrete trucks. It was to the tune of like $5 million or something. It was some astronomical number of loss. And they were letting, I don't know. Wouldn't let somebody borrow my lawnmower, let alone a front end loader and some other, like a Bobcat or something. Like they dropped it off for these people to use. And one guy knew how to use one. And, these people, the owners of the company, trusted the community to use it to, remove large items and things like that with the grappling thing on the front end. And so just pretty cool to see everybody coming together. And Montclair is most certainly one of those types of communities, always has been, because it's such a small section of the township. But it's like the go-between between the more rural development style part of the township and getting into Phoenixville Borough. So it's sort of like that transitional little section of town, which little sections of like a little borough within the township is a pretty cool. The dynamic of the people there is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I see Sandy's sending some messages
Yeah,
here.
Sandy's great.
Yeah, I'll get you a sign if you go out to Tom Yeager for UPT on Facebook and instant message me. I'd be more than happy to bring by a sign. And I agree with you about the police too. I don't think we can ever have enough police. That's just the way I've always felt. I think they protect and serve, and that's the motto, and that's what we need. And I think Upper Providence is a beautiful community. I think it's a safe community. But I agree with you. I don't often see them in my area too, but I do see them around. But yeah, I'd like to get in office and understand. That's the hardest thing about running. Honestly, Matt, if you're an incumbent, so much more. I'd like to know. I guess I could get in and see how many officers we have, but I don't know their shifts. I don't know how they work the shifts. I don't know. I don't know the intricate details. I know how many we have. Where I can find that out. So I'm really curious to get in and look at the data. I'm a data-driven guy. We had a town hall with Perkiomen Woods last night, and it was myself, Al Vagnosi, Helene Kelsey, and Rajan. I'm sorry, I forget his last name, but he's running with Helene as the other Democrat. It was evident because they were asking us questions, and it was tough for me. I was first, and I didn't know how to answer a lot of the questions so I had to kind of rely on my what I've learned over 20 years in business is listen. Number one, I wouldn't be in the position I am in work if I wasn't capable of listening. You don't always know the right thing to do unless you listen, right? I wouldn't have known to go down to Montclair had not this woman, Mary, reached out to me. I didn't go down there to be a superstar. I went down there to listen. We heard what they needed, and we were able to get them support and also donate and help out as well with some food and things like that. So I think that's all it takes. But it was interesting too, because there was a lot of questions about details that I just wouldn't know until I'm in office. So it's kind of hard being in a town hall, but hopefully people recognize that I'm inquisitive. I stop to think, I listen, and I think you're going to hear a lot about my fiscal conservative background, and I try to leave politics out of this local election. I even said it last night. I really don't think. I think the topics are mostly bipartisan topics because you're managing a township. You're not managing, a defense budget or you're not on the federal level. You're managing much different things. So we're in an inflationary period right now. I mean, a loaf of bread costs a lot of money. Filling up your gas, gas was $3.40 or something the other day. I think I saw, which I don't fill up the gas as much anymore because I work from home. So when I did, it kind of shocked me. And, energy prices are going to be very high. We're heading into winter, and they're going to be high. If you're on natural gas, it's going to be high. If you're on propane, it's going to be high. Electricity costs are on the rise. So I think it's more important now than ever that we take a pause and we really look at our budget in this township and say, where do we need to spend the money? Because back in June in the Board of Supervisor workshop, we heard that we're heading into a deficit. We had a $400,000 deficit at that point. That did not include all of the costs of the full-time fire and EMS that we hired since then, which I fully support. I think we need it. The cost of operating that new firehouse is about to come in. We have a $10 million loan now that we have to pay back for that firehouse. We really need to look at these things and understand where we're going to put our money next year without raising taxes. We can't burden the people with higher taxes when we're in this extremely high inflationary period. Never a big fan of raising taxes, period, but it's usually a bad time. Right now is a terrible time. So I think it's very important that we step back. We look at the 10-year plan. I'm being told now that there is a 10-year plan. From what I've learned, I thought it expired 2 years ago. It'd be nice if it was transparent to know what that plan is. But I think that plan has to be smart growth, slow down the development. I think Mary even said it in one of her texts that the water runoff from all the development is getting worse the more we develop. I tend to agree with her, and we have to make sure that we have the right sewer systems and water management systems to handle that. But they're talking about a library technology center, and I don't know if that's a 2022 or 2023 idea. It shouldn't be an idea for 5 years plus in my mind, because there's no reason to pull out another $10-15 million loan for a library when we should be focusing on what are we doing in the floodplains. We still have lots of areas in traffic's just getting worse. We're adding all these apartments, we're adding hotels. Traffic is getting worse. It's not getting better. 113 has been brought up to me several times about several intersections there that are very, very dangerous. So what are we doing about that? Hopwood is being corrected, but it's being corrected with a light where 29 and Hopwood are extremely dangerous intersection. I know the township has tried to work with PennDOT for years to fix that. It's getting fixed, but it's getting fixed and an apartment complex is going in. So it's getting fixed, but we're still adding traffic, right? The folks at Perkiomen Woods are complaining about being able to make a left turn coming into there because they would like a turning lane. There's not the real estate to do that. So there's a lot of infrastructure that I think we need to focus on. So I'd really like to take a look at the budget next year. I'm a little concerned that I saw we're in a deficit, we're in an inflationary period, and we've added costs since I've seen that seen that workshop. So to me, that's where I think I can add value, is come in and look at that and ask the right questions. And any kind of large spending things need to be transparent. I would venture to think that, in fact, I know that many, many, many people don't know anything about the library and technology center, because the folks that I asked had no idea. From what I hear, there's significant interest. What does that mean? The other problem I have, it's not a problem, I shouldn't say that. The other change that I would bring, or a different approach that I would bring into the township, is let's use technology to our advantage. There's online surveys. We have a website, but the website hasn't been freshened up. Why don't we run a survey and broadcast? We have quarterly mailers that go out, let people know, go to the website page, the township website page, and fill out this survey and really get an understanding of how many people think we should be taking out loans for a library/technology center versus, maybe working on the infrastructure. What's the consensus on continuing to grow versus kind of slowing down the development? I want to slow down the development. Park houses, I brought this up to you before too, Matt, and I know I'm rambling, but so cut me off at any time.
No, I love it. Keep it going, dude.
But park houses, it's the largest area of open space in the township, but it represents like 50%. There's still pockets of open space. Yeah, they're not these big mega developments that can go in, or apartments or things like that, but we should not be developing them, in my mind. What's in the plan? What do we want to be kind of when we grow up in 10 years and beyond that? So I just think you're going to hear a lot about me coming up. I got some mailers coming out that I've been working on. Should be coming out probably Friday, so should be hitting people's mailboxes over the weekend. And it talks a lot about my desire to be fiscally responsible. We got to be looking at this budget and not putting the burden on the taxpayers. And we have to make sure that we're transparent in what we're talking about spending money on, because I just don't see it. I don't see follow-up either. Another idea that I brought up to the Board of Supervisors was, it's great that we write up minutes when we have meetings, and it's great that we approve those minutes at the beginning of the next meeting. What would be really nice is the actions that were taken during the meeting, if we follow up on those actions,
right,
and we show some accountability to pushing forward. I'm sure there's work happening when there's an action. Bill Starling took a big action last month. The Board of Supervisor meeting is Monday. I've been watching these things for 2 years and attending them. I guarantee you that we will not start that meeting saying, hey, this was brought up. We said we would do this last time. Check the box. It's completed. Here's the next steps. Or, hey, it's not completed. We need to continue it. That's what I can kind of bring to the table. It's just some common sense to the way that we manage and keep the transparency. And there's a lot of work to do here. I think we're at a transitional period, and that's kind of why I'm excited about running right now, because I'm hoping to get in now while we're in kind of a transitional period. We're at an inflection point, and really I can get in there and help guide us in the right direction.
A couple of things I want to unpack there. You hit on a lot of great topics, and I think a couple of things that for people that are listening. So I'll give you an example, and I use Collegeville because that's where I work, and I can directly tell you the cause and effect of certain things. In Lower Providence, the Collegeville smorgasbord, or whatever it used to be back in the day, right when you go over the bridge in the Lower Providence from Collegeville, is now a senior living center. And historically, when there would be a flood, the water would equally rise and disperse on the Collegeville side and the Lower Providence side. And that building would flood, a couple of feet on the first floor and up into the parking lot. Since it was purchased and turned into a senior living center, they built this gigantic wall about 50 feet, 75 feet in from the creek, which is great. But what it's doing is acting as like a ricochet point for the water. It's pushing, when the water doesn't have a place to spread, the water will go back to the path of least resistance, which is on the Collegeville side. And if you think about, Phoenixville's development, and I can't specifically say one project versus another could have caused anything, but I would argue that there's probably some cause and effect to the development of Phoenixville to the increased flooding in Montclair. When you just think about what has transpired in Phoenixville over the last 10 years, Montclair is not going under the same growth. You didn't increase the volume of the sewer system. There is not, I'm venturing to guess that a lot of the chess move counteractions that would have been done to an increase in development on one side of the river, I'm sure there wasn't an equal or greater reaction to that growth to account for anything that could possibly come from that construction and development. So when you think about things like that as a resident of a certain place, and especially if you live along a waterway, what's on the other side of the water?
Yeah.
And those are the logical questions that need to be asked and then answered by someone in who's way smarter than me, or possibly even you, to come up with a plan on, okay, we have a community called Montclair, a little village that is right along the Schuylkill River that has, had basically the same homes in it for the last 80 years. What are we doing to help them? Because there's a booming metropolis across the river that isn't stopping because Montclair isn't changing.
Yeah. So
when you think about where you're spending your money, and you're going to spend, I don't know what a technical center / library costs, I'm going to guess $10-15 million. If you're going to spend $10 to $15 million, $30 million, whatever it is, and I understand there may be an argument that there may be some underserved people that may be able to utilize that don't have access to internet or computers or whatever the case might be, that might be able to use that. Well, I would argue that I would just get a contract with Dell and have laptops and free internet for 1/50th of the cost.
Yeah.
And solve the problem, because the library is literally at your fingertips. It's not a physical structure anymore. It no longer is a requirement to go and check out the card catalog and the Dewey Decimal System and go find your book by walking through the aisles and looking at AC 109.6 and pulling the book out, right? So it's literally at your fingertips. So creating solutions that are technologically equal to the times in which we're living in is probably a smarter use of funds than building a building because you can, right?
Yeah.
So I would take that extra $40 million or $30 million and reinvest that into Montclair, so that a Buddy Martin's Lock 29 restaurant isn't underwater a month after he buys the building and renovates it. Just stuff like that you think you don't think about until after you suffer the trauma. But if you then don't react to the cause and effect of that trauma, then you're negligent in your role as a supervisor and the people that work for the township. So I think bringing those questions to the table are important.
Yeah, you have to, Yeah, we have the same thing at work, right? We don't have unlimited money or unlimited resources, and we have a lot of projects, a lot of investment we want to do in our business, but we can't do it all. We can't do it all in one year. You have to look at what you need. You got to listen to the whole business. We're not a management team of dictators. We're supporting hundreds of people in the business to work safely and to have jobs and to make sure our workplaces are safe. But we have to prioritize. You have to say, what am I going to invest in this year? What am I going to invest in next year? What's the priority? I like to break it down into must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, nice-to-haves. What are the must-haves in the township? That's what I think I can bring to the table. That's what I do every day in my job. You have to look at these things and you have to understand where's the right place to invest and where isn't it. The library is an awesome idea. The technology center, I saw the plans. It's really cool. It's a really nice to have thing. It's not what we need to spend our money on right now. Could it fall into the plan? Is it a priority? I think that's where we got to lean into using some modern technology to reach out to the people and maybe do some online surveys. You're not going to get a big result on your first online survey. You got to get the word out that it exists. People probably don't even go to the Upper Providence Township website all that much. But that would be a good place to do it. We have these quarterly mailers. Get it out, get the word out, and say, hey, we're going to do this, and it's going to be open from this date to this date, and this is the subject. I just think we can bring some common sense to managing this thing, and I look forward to election day. I'm working hard. I'm trying. I'm trying hard. Well, and if I get in, that's where the real work begins, is trying to understand what's the priority, what we want to spend our money on. And it's not me alone, right? There's 4 other supervisors. So we have to, you have to learn how to work with people and come to a consensus and influence without authority. So it's but I do think we're at an inflection point where we need to think about what the priorities are right now.
When you've been out and about, whether it's at these town hall meeting style things or just talking to people out and about or going to door to door, what's the top 3 concerns that, if you had 3 that you could prioritize that the people you've spoken to have, what would they be?
The development comes up a lot. A lot of folks feel that we have just overgrown Upper Providence at a very rapid pace. I tend to agree with them. There's a lot of longtime residents here that are, some of them you can feel are almost heartbroken to see the farmland and see some of the land that has gone away. I think that the township has developed in a smart way to a degree. There's not a lot of dense growth, right? So it's housing, it's, so it's not, for lack of a better term, kind of grotesque. And as you drive around, it still has a smaller town feel to it. But that's definitely one of the things that comes up a lot. Another one is the library. In fact, I bring that up, and almost everyone I talk to has no idea about it. So that's and when I bring that up, their first concern is, well, why are we spending our money on that? So that always leads into the conversation about transparency. So those things kind of always get linked. Mary brought it up earlier too. The fire, EMS, and police. Making sure we have enough police. We need more police presence. A lot of people were unclear about the firehouse. I think the firehouse was a terrific idea. It's in the perfect spot in the township to respond in a very, very good way. I know the volunteerism was dropping. So having a mix of full-time and volunteers run that facility, I think, is a good way to kind of keep the costs down. I don't know the details. I think Mary or Sandy even said it in one of her points here, and I agree with her that it's large. It's very big. Was it over planned? I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't have intimate knowledge of how many pieces of equipment we need to have there, what are the styles of equipment, and how are they coordinating the equipment in that facility with Black Rock Fire and Royersford and the surrounding township. So, but it is a very expensive project, and but again, so that one's kind of difficult because we want to have that kind of service and emergency services in the township, but at the same time, we got to pay it back, and we got to pay for the recurring costs of that now. So we shouldn't be jumping right back into other large investments.
Right. I think, and I'll talk a little bit on the police and fire side. Upper Providence, I can remember back when I first started nearly 3 decades ago, Upper Providence was working out of a trailer. That was their police station. It was actually a mobile home, right? That was the police station. So, and it was, 5 or 6 guys, and it was 90%, it was Montclair and the Collegeville section and the Royersford section, and then a bunch of farm in between, right? So it wasn't a whole lot of people. Well, it's drastically changed in 30 years. And I'm going to guess there's probably 22, 23 guys there in the department. And, when you think about that may sound like a lot to some people. It may sound like not enough to others, but, it's probably 4 guys a shift covering a 12 square mile township. And, that's a supervisor and a couple of patrolmen. And, if you think about, and I don't know what the right number would be. I certainly think it's more than 22, 23, probably closer to 30 would be a safe number for a township that size, as far as having to have the ability to have breadth of knowledge in different areas of law enforcement, and maybe having, a detective more or 2, and maybe you guys have a lot of traffic accidents, having someone out there that's actively, and I know you have one guy now, Sergeant Slorio, who is doing traffic studies, and he's the one that's out there writing tickets when people blow by school buses when they're stopped, like ensuring those little small things that actually mean a lot when if you're a parent and you entrust your child to stand at a corner and load a school bus, and you're hoping that everyone else does their job properly, which is the other motorists on the road, so that everybody gets home safe or to school safe. And, having somebody around that's making sure that people are doing that. And there's a lot of different nuances in law enforcement that aren't simply making arrests, that bring a level of safety and comfort to a community. Collegeville Borough is rated one of the safest places to live, and we have 8 guys, but it's 1.6 square miles.
Right.
It's the climate of the borough is a little bit different than, you have a lot more area and a lot more potential for people moving into different areas to cause problems. And if there's people causing problems at one end of the township, and same time someone's causing problems at the other end of the township, how do you handle that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of, granted, we have a lot of mutual support for one another as neighboring departments, but an Upper Providence Township for its size, function, budget, population does deserve to have a fully functioning, highly competent, well-staffed police department that can cover most of the functions from within, and not have to outsource to like the county detectives for investigations depending on the type of crime.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the fire department, Collegeville Borough's an all-volunteer fire department. They got a new fire station a few years back, and they went out and got that done themselves. The borough put some money into it, not a whole lot, but they pay that note off. And to do that, they have a room they rent out, and they do their car show, like they do fundraisers in order to pay off the bills, right? So, and I don't know what the situation was with the new fire department for Upper Providence, but having a multifunctional space that also serves the function of revenue generating for weddings and birthday parties using the hall, like those are all things that can help reduce costs for the township if you allow that to be part of the process. And having enough space to safely train and do the things that the fire department needs to do in order to stay capable and functional is part of the process of the size of the building, because it's very difficult to find houses to rip apart or cars to use the jaws of life on for practice in someone else's property, right? So having the space to do those things. So just to give some people an understanding of why maybe a building is as big as it is or as small as it is or whatever the case might be, or why there's manpower to this degree versus that degree. Those are kind of the things that, as a veteran of doing this for 3 decades, that's the kind of stuff that, we look at. Collegeville Borough Police Department, we have a detective who's a great detective, but there's just certain things that we just aren't capable of doing as a department because we don't have the staffing and the budget to do that. And we rely on the county for resources to do a lot of things. It's not that that's not that we're not individually knowledgeable. It's just we don't have the resources to be able to fully investigate certain things on our own. Upper Providence does and should be. It's rightfully should, based on the size and the demographics of the township.
Yeah. No, I mean, I appreciate your service, Matt, and all the police and firefighters, military. I have not had the opportunity to serve the community, and that's one reason that I'm running now. It's my chance to actually get involved and do that.
Well, let's tell people about where, you got this fundraiser coming up, and I was lucky enough to make this gentleman's acquaintance, James Jones, who is, man, when you meet him, dude, wow. Just a humble veteran, Navy veteran. Doesn't look it, but he was a Vietnam War, maybe Korean War. Dude's been around. Gulf War, like he was in for a long time. He's spanned like 3 different wars. He's running for lieutenant governor. He's an African-American gentleman. Lives up in the like Hatboro area, I believe is where he's from. But to hear him speak and the things that he's passionate about, he's a fiscal conservative. He's a Frederick Douglass conservative, as he calls himself. I had him on my podcast. One of the best hour and 10 minutes I've spent in a long time. I just felt empowered to see someone who had that much confidence to be the outsider, right? Because it's African Americans typically aren't on the conservative side of the aisle, and for him to Kathy Barnett's another great one. She's running for Senate and U.S. Senate. She ran for House in the last election, and I believe had it stolen from her, but that's a whole different conversation. But there's a lot of really powerful, strong, confident patriots that are stepping up and stepping into leadership roles at different levels, whether it's in the school board or the supervisor level or in the state and federal houses. I think you're going to really enjoy meeting James Jones at your event. Tell people where that event is and what the plans are.
Yeah, so it's at the Hilton Garden Inn. It's next Wednesday from 6 to 9. It's going to be pretty fun. We're doing a casino night. We're having a 50-50. There's a silent auction. So a lot of really nice donations and prizes to go home with. So we're trying to make it really fun, not just come and hear us speak and donate to help us run our campaigns, but really honored to have James show up. I'm excited to meet him. I'm actually going to try to give him a call before Wednesday and just make a little better introduction. We also reached out to Megan Sullivan. My wife met Megan Sullivan. She was in an MCRC event and had a chance to meet her. She's running for PA Supreme Court, I believe it is. So she may be showing up too, which would be pretty exciting. And I let her know, hey, you show up, you got some microphone time as well. Let's all take our advantage of having some really strong supporters there. So yeah, if you go out onto my Tom Yeager for UPT Facebook page, you can find more details about it. But yeah, inviting all who want to come. What's that?
That's the Hilton Garden Inn in Oaks.
In Oaks, PA, yeah. Yep.
That's
the one there behind the Bob Evans on Egypt Road.
I think one of the even though I ran for office, I would rather rip my eyeballs out than be called a politician. I prefer servant as a title. There are people that are politicians. Those are the people that have been in office for 47, 50 years. And then there are servants. There are people that recognize there's a moment in time which they can do some good, and then they leave when that moment in time has run its course. And I think, someone like James Jones, who is, the lieutenant governor, most people don't really understand what the lieutenant governor does because he's not necessarily a vocal person. It's not necessarily like the vice president. It's a different role than at the state level than it is in federal level. But getting someone like James Jones, who he's a good person to know. He's a good person to be associated with. He's someone that is available. Say like he's not someone that's trying to big chime anybody or turn himself into some sort of cult figure for the Black community. He's just a guy that is a veteran, loves his country, is proud to be an American, and wants to be part of other people's lives that are like-minded and are proud of being Americans. And I think, he's going to be a great asset to you. I hope for the future. And I think he's somebody that is extremely intelligent and extremely well understood of the history of our country and comes from a perspective that neither you nor I could ever come from. And that's from being a Black male. Right. So I think it adds to the depth of the conversation you can have with people when you have a resource like him. And I'm just excited I made that. And literally, I don't even know why it popped into my head, but I'm like, I remembered I met him at an event, a conservative event that a bunch of conservatives that showed up for. And Jim was actually Jim White was at prior to the primaries. And if you talk to Jim, he'll tell you how well James did. But it was just like all of a sudden it popped in my head. I'm like, maybe I should introduce Tom and James. Maybe James will come.
Yeah.
And sure as hell he is. But so everybody can reach you at your Facebook page, which is Tom Yeager for UPT.
Yep.
And then your website is what? Same thing?
Yeah, it's the same thing, but not many people visit that. I found you can get to it there, but the Facebook page is a lot more informative. And
everybody that's watching on HAPS, you can also watch this video on YouTube at Matt Cubbler. That's my YouTube channel where this will live, and Tom will be sharing the links to the YouTube on his Facebook page. And I urge everybody who wants the Tom Yeager sign to go to Facebook and private message him and just give him your address. He'll drop one off. He's probably going to need help with people working the polls. Clearly we'll be there for you.
I appreciate that.
And I think anybody that's willing to step up and spend a couple hours on a Tuesday to help you is going to be doing a good thing. Even if you're not an Upper Providence resident, which I'm not, helping a good person get into a position of leadership in order to help lead other citizens of our country is always a good thing. So you have any final closing thoughts?
We do have this Saturday is Upper Providence Township Community Day, so I'm going to have a table there.
That's always a fun time.
Be helping, kids will be helping. I think there's a lot of fun events, food trucks, ice cream, cone ice, all kinds of stuff. My wife and I are going to have something for the kids, and my kids will be there. So hopefully the weather holds out. I think it's looking like rain right now, but hopefully the weather holds out and we have a nice time.
Sandy asked, how much are the tickets to your fundraiser? Is there a set price or is it a
there's different levels. Contributors $125, but we're giving a $50 discount to police, EMT, fire, military. So $75 for any of those folks.
Cool. So go to Tom Yeager for UPT on Facebook to get all that information.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and do, when's election day? What's the date on that?
November 2nd.
November 2nd. Okay. So hopefully we'll do one more at least before then. I know I got my schedule shifted and back to working midnights for a couple months, and which is never fun. But we'll figure something out where we'll get at least one, maybe two more of these bad boys in, and just try to really hammer home some key points that are important as we're leading up to the final days before election. So thank you, everybody.
Yep. I appreciate your time, and Sandy, appreciate the extra commentary there too. Please reach out to me.
Sandy's awesome.
Yeah.
She's always been, she was very helpful and supportive of me when I was running, and she's part of my Chestnut Checkers movement. And which if you want to use that, you can. I created a movement that, we're playing a different game than everybody else, Chestnut Checkers. Yeah. And it was fun while it lasted, but I still have a little group together, which is fun. But everybody, thank you. please go to Tom's Facebook page, like it, share it, support it, take these videos, post them on your social media, put them on your YouTube channels, put them on your Facebook pages. The more people we can get out into the public space sharing this, the better it is for Tom, and the better it is for Upper Providence Township. And this isn't, even if you have no skin in the game for Upper Providence, if you just think about how impactful one person sharing a video can be, because you never know in your network, someone may live in Upper Providence Township or live near Upper Providence and has a friend that lives there and says, hey, you should see this video. There's this guy, Tom Yeager. He's going to be great for your township. Let's vote for him. That's how the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon works, right? So that's what it's all about. So for me, when I was running my campaign on social media only, it worked great. There were people from other states that were supporting me, that were sharing videos, and there were people that knew what I was doing and had the ability to vote in my district. So it works that way. So please share, please support, please, if you're a conservative or you're a moderate and you're just looking for someone that's going to listen and then care about what your tax dollars do for you, Tom Yeager's your guy. Everybody, God bless, take care, and go out and be kind to one another.